Hall of Convergence thrummed with the deep purr of dimension stabilizers as the walls folded in colors not native to visible light. Every corner shimmered with polished starlight, refracted through crystalline banners bearing the sigil of Varelia, a spiral sun wrapped in quantum lace. It was a room designed to crush the souls of the unimpressive, to flatten egos with grandeur. Even the podium had opinions, and today it waited for a verdict. Queen Elira, tall, poised, ears like elegant blades curving behind her head, stood at the apex of that radiant symmetry. Her skin glowed faintly with the telltale bioluminescence of her species, a sign of emotional activation, though only the inner court could read the hue. She was bored, very bored. The war had been long, but Varelia had won. Again. The eastern systems had fallen, their fleets turned to stardust confetti. The military council now gathered like trophy insects in polished exosuits, awaiting the final pronouncement, her reward. The Grand Proclaimer, a being composed entirely of plasma and poorly timed dramatic pauses, raised one incandescent limb and announced, in accordance with Clause Infinity of the Ascendancy Code, the Crown of Varelia may now claim any prize, material, political, or living, within the reach of known space. A slow ripple of anticipatory gasps moved through the room like an excited sneeze. A nebular prince leaned in. A trade baron adjusted his orbital monocle. Even the sentient bonsai in the corner perked up. Elira stepped forward, her gown a living creature, stitched from symbiotic threads. She paused just long enough to let the suspense inflate to an unhealthy size, then calmly spoke. I would like the human. Silence achieved liftoff. Generals blinked in unsynchronized horror. The Grand Proclaimer flickered uncertainly. Someone, possibly a Duke of Saturn, began quietly hyperventilating into a decorative helmet. Pardon, Your Radiance, the Proclaimer said, audibly trying to buffer. Did you mean a specific human? Yes, Elira said. Elliot Trent, botanist, stationed on Gallows Fringe, slight limp, questionable posture, mildly obsessed with root vegetables. I want him. Is he, a minister whispered, weaponized? No, Elira said, but he once made me laugh so hard I fell out of a hoverchair. I consider that a form of power. The hall did not approve. A noble fainted. Someone dropped a data tablet and was scolded by the tablet itself. The court descended into a low murmur of disbelief, like a disappointed crowd at a very avant-garde puppet show. Half a galaxy away, Elliot Trent sneezed violently and hit his head on the underside of a compost tank. He was, at that exact moment, in an argument with a semi-sentient irrigation drone named Blip. I told you not to water the carnivorous cabbage after dusk, Elliot said, holding up a half-eaten clipboard. Blip chirped defensively. I don't care what the manual says, Elliot said, brushing leaf slime off his shirt. The manual doesn't scream when its arm gets nibbled off, does it? Blip beeped in a manner that was frankly rude. Elliot grumbled, turned, and stopped short. Standing at the edge of the greenhouse was a figure in imperial gold, holding a scroll made of some kind of smart paper that was already attempting to wrap itself around his leg. Elliot Trent, said the figure, who had 6 eyes and the exhausted dignity of a civil servant deep into unpaid overtime. You have been chosen by Queen Elira as her personal reward. Please sign here to confirm your participation in destiny. I'm sorry, in what? The scroll chirped. By signing, you waive the right to object, resist, flee, or vomit. I'm really more of a horticulture guy, Elliot tried as 2 additional figures shimmered into existence, scanning him with lasers that smelled faintly of lavender. I have like 3 plants that depend on me, and a beetle colony that's emotionally fragile. He was handed a ceremonial pen that vibrated softly, as if it, too, found this absurd. Seriously, Elliot said, backing up. Do you have the wrong guy? I'm not even that interesting. I once choked on a rice cake. Blip offered a goodbye honk as a gravitational net wrapped around Elliot's torso and gently flung him into the air. The last thing he saw before vanishing into a flash of light was the cabbage nodding ominously, as if to say, you'll regret this. When Elliot rematerialized, it was into a chamber filled with music that vibrated inside his teeth and walls that subtly adjusted themselves to look more important when someone was watching. He stood on a circular platform of light, blinking rapidly and still clutching a garden spade. "Welcome to the throne cradle," said a voice behind him. He turned, and there she was, Queen Illyra, not in armor, not in the high regalia, just there, in a long silver robe, her long ears dipped slightly in what looked like amusement. "You've gotten taller," she said. "You've definitely stayed fictional," Elliot replied before his brain caught up. "Wait, you're real? Oh no. You don't remember me, do you? I mean, were you the hallucination with the mangoes? Because if so, I'm really sorry about the thing with the duct tape." She smiled and something in the room's gravitational rhythm skipped. Behind her, an advisor face-palmed. An ambassador muttered, "This cannot be the consort." Another shouted, "He's holding a shovel." "He's holding my interest," Illyra said, her voice slicing through the static of disbelief like a comet through butter. Elliot blinked. "Okay, just one thing. If I am your reward, do I get hazard pay? Also, do you have any snacks?" Illyra tilted her head, regal and amused. "You've come a long way from bandaging my ankle with recycled adhesive strips." "Still my most successful medical procedure," Elliot said proudly. A single laugh, unwilling and genuine, escaped one of the guards. The sound was quickly stomped to death, and so the court of Varelia watched, stunned and thoroughly confused, as their queen, victor of empires, breaker of coalitions, empress of 12 constellations, sat beside a human with dirt on his shirt and an absolutely unforgivable cowlick. He offered her a mint he found in his pocket. She took it. The galaxy would never recover. Elliot sat on what he assumed was a couch, though it hissed softly every time he moved and adjusted its contours like it was judging him. The palace room was less room and more floating diorama of impossible geometry, with walls that shifted from opalescent blue to anxious chartreuse whenever anyone entered. A set of invisible chimes played softly in the background, one note short of relaxing and one note too many to ignore. Somewhere a sentient candle recited poetry to itself in a minor key. Across from him, Queen Illyra sipped from a cup that shimmered with quantum foam and smelled like cinnamon and the color green. She had changed into something even more elegant than before, if that was possible, and still managed to look calm, radiant, and slightly amused, like someone about to prank a rival species with legal immunity. "You're uncomfortable," she said, not as a question. "No, I'm great," Elliot said. "Your furniture has opinions, the ceiling just winked at me, and I'm pretty sure my shoes are levitating. What's not to love?" The couch hissed louder. He shifted and it made a sound like a passive-aggressive sigh. "Apologies," she said, gesturing. "You've been placed in a high-comfort chamber. It's calibrated for royal nerve clusters." "Mine mostly react to caffeine and awkward silences," Elliot muttered, then immediately regretted it. "Wait, sorry, is that disrespectful? I don't want to get vaporized by a mood lamp." "I don't vaporize guests," Illyra said, "unless they interrupt me during lunar meditation." "That seems fair," Elliot said, eyes darting to the nearest exit. She smiled again, which was starting to make the furniture even more reactive. A nearby chaise quivered with emotional investment. "I imagine you have questions," she said. "Just a few," Elliot said, starting with, "Why am I here? Why did you ask for me? And this is important. What exactly does chosen reward entail? Because if it involves blood rituals or interpretive dance, I need a day to stretch." Illyra placed her cup on a table that immediately wrote a sonnet about it. "You saved me once," she said. "I did." "You were working at an outpost," she said, 5 years ago, on Orlin 9. A fungal plague had swept through the colony. I was in disguise, injured during an extraction mission. You gave me shelter, helped me recover." Elliot blinked. "Are you sure that was me? I've helped a lot of people. I mean, I once resuscitated a lizard with a straw. You also shared your last nutrient bar, named your garden tools after Earth philosophers, and told me that cucumbers don't get enough emotional credit." That does sound like me." "You didn't recognize me then," she said, which made it honest. Elliot's brain did a slow backflip. "Wait, You were the lady with the weird scarf and the ankle bandage who kept asking if walls could be trusted? Camouflage isn't always perfect, she said, brushing a strand of silver hair behind her ear. I thought you were a hallucination. I'd been eating irradiated mangoes. She leaned forward. You treated me without knowing who I was. You made me laugh when I thought I might never walk again. That laugh, that absurd, involuntary, undignified noise you caused, stayed with me through battles, betrayals, even the Ascension Summit. Elliot rubbed the back of his neck. Okay, that's a lot, but I was just doing what anyone would. No, she interrupted gently. Most would have reported me, or fled. You gave me tea and told me your compost bin was haunted. It is. Blip won't go near it. Silence stretched between them, warm and full of ancient history and accidental kindness. Then, so, just to clarify, Elliot said, you picked me as your post-war prize because I'm a good listener with questionable snack habits? I picked you because you reminded me of something I thought I'd lost, she said. Choice. Laughter. A piece of myself that wasn't made of law or blood. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He felt like someone had handed him a priceless relic and asked if he wanted fries with it. A door whooshed open without being touched. A tall figure entered, swathed in formal armor and coated in layers of judgment. His ears were shorter than Elira's but sharper, angled like weaponized parentheses. Apologies, Your Radiance, the advisor said stiffly. The High Council requests clarification. They remain confused by your selection. I expected as much, and she said. The advisor gave Elliot a brief scalding look, like a heat ray set to mild insult. And you, he said, are you even aware of what this honor entails? Honestly, I thought I was being kidnapped at first. Then I thought it was a prank. Now I'm somewhere between culture shock and a very elaborate fever dream. You will be presented to the galaxy, the advisor said coldly, as her chosen consort. You will dine with planetary leaders, represent Varelian diplomacy, learn 36 ceremonial dances, wear garments with sentient embroidery. Can the embroidery do sarcasm? The advisor blinked. I'll take that as a maybe, Elliot said. You are underqualified, underwhelming, and statistically insignificant. Thank you, Elliot said. My school guidance counselor would have agreed. Illyra waved the advisor away. He left reluctantly, like a cat being told it wasn't welcome in the room it owned. I'm not royalty material, Elliot said as the doors closed again. I still accidentally iron sleeves shut. My idea of fashion is remembering to button all the buttons. You don't have to be anything but yourself. That's never been enough before. She stood. Then let this empire be the first to disagree. He blinked. Are you always this intense? Only when I mean it. A soft chime echoed. The lights dimmed slightly. It's late, she said. Your chambers are ready. My what is ready? You'll need rest. Tomorrow we begin your orientation. Orientation? There are protocols, tests, trials. Elliot paused mid-sentence, then pointed at himself. Me? Trials like puzzles? Like survival. I see, and failing means, well, she said, smiling faintly, no one's ever failed and lived long enough to review it. The couch beneath Elliot sighed again, this time with genuine sympathy. Okay, he muttered. Cool. Galactic Hunger Games, but with fancier napkins. Good night, Elliot Trent. He stood, hesitated, then nodded. Good night, Your Majesty. As he followed the glowing floor path toward his quarters, Elliot looked back just once. She stood there, still as a myth, watching him go. A queen, an alien, a memory given form. And he was a man who once screamed at a cabbage and got bitten by a hose. This was going to be weird. Elliot woke to the sound of a gong that didn't make sound so much as insist upon its presence in his spinal cord. His quarters had transformed overnight. What had been a modest room with a polite bed and 2 shy chairs was now a training suite complete with holographic projectors, anti-gravity treadmills, and a wardrobe that announced each outfit with theatrical flair. Today's ensemble, the wardrobe sang, is heroic blush overcoat with tactical whimsy pants. Please allow 15 seconds for it to emotionally prepare for wearing you. Elliot staggered to the mirror, still wearing the universal sleep tunic. It had printed glowing vines on itself overnight, presumably to feel relevant. A voice crackled from a small floating sphere, now hovering aggressively beside his head. "Greetings, Elliot Trent. I am Orientation Unit 7B. You may call me Barry." Elliot blinked. "Barry? It stands for Basic Artificial Relay for Ritual Instruction and Etiquette. I was designed to gently transition organic life forms into complex interstellar customs. My previous client was a mollusk emperor who only spoke in humidity." "I already have a hard time with buffet etiquette," Elliot muttered. "Then we begin with the trial of doors," Barry said. A section of the wall shimmered and disappeared, revealing a corridor with 17 doors. They pulsed gently as if breathing. "You must find the true exit," Barry explained. "Choose incorrectly, and you may be mildly disassembled." Define mildly. Somewhere between paper cut and quantum scattering. Elliot stared at the hallway. "Okay, how do I tell them apart?" Barry floated closer. "Each door is a metaphor." "Metaphors hate me," Elliot whispered. "The correct door will respond to your essence, your honesty, your ability to accept uncertainty." "I have acid reflux and a crippling fear of conference calls. Does that count?" He walked past a door that whispered his name in 5 tones. Another gave off a scent that reminded him of his grandmother's garage. One door simply opened and said, "Definitely not this one," before closing itself again. Eventually, he stopped before a plain, gray door with no hum, no glow, no threat. It felt like forgetting something important. He touched it. It didn't react. "Barry," he said, "what happens if I just sit here and refuse?" "Then the doors will get bored and start emitting interpretive lightning." Elliot sighed and opened the door. He found himself in a room full of jellyfish, floating, glowing, possibly judgy jellyfish, suspended in zero gravity, drifting lazily through strands of harmonic sound. Each one emitted waves of emotion like invisible music. "You've entered the trial of diplomacy," Barry said. "You must negotiate safe passage through their territory using only emotion-based communication." Elliot blinked. "I have the emotional range of a slightly damp sandwich." "Try not to project fear. They dislike anxiety. It makes their limbs go curly." One of the jellyfish floated toward him, releasing a wave of energy that tasted like a breakup text. Elliot closed his eyes. He thought of composting his first tomato plant, of the time his dog fell asleep mid-bark, of the night he met the queen in the outpost storm, when she wasn't a queen and he wasn't anything at all. A pulse of curiosity rippled outward from his chest. The jellyfish paused. It blinked or twitched, possibly both. Then it glowed a warm amber, like approval wrapped in bathwater. "Fascinating," Barry whispered. "You've initiated reciprocal curiosity. Try not to ruin it." Elliot slowly waved. "Hello, floating anxiety pancakes. I come in peace and slight confusion." Another jellyfish drifted forward and enveloped him in a hug of mild electrostatic charge and surprising comfort. "Trial complete," Barry said as the room faded. "You are now certified emotionally acceptable." "High praise," Elliot said, still sparking slightly. "Do I get a sticker?" "You get a sparring match with the ceremonial beast." "I want a sticker." The next chamber was a coliseum made entirely of reflective metal. Every surface showed a version of Elliot from slightly worse angles. In the center stood the ceremonial beast, a 7-foot flamingo with cybernetic legs, rotating optical sensors, and an aura of flamboyant menace. "That's not a flamingo," Elliot said. "That's a weaponized fashion critique." "Present yourself," a voice boomed. "I present myself as a conscientious objector with back pain." The flamingo screeched, its legs extended, its eyes blinked asynchronously. "Begin!" Elliot dodged the first lunge by sheer accident, tripping over his own foot and bouncing off a nearby wall. The flamingo's beak barely missed him, instead clamping down on a decorative flagpole. "Use your surroundings," Barry called. "I'd rather use a nap." He grabbed a piece of loose flooring and waved it like a shield. The flamingo paused, scanning him. He threw the flooring. It clanged off its leg with a sound like offended porcelain. "I don't want to fight you," Elliot said. "You're clearly going through something. I respect that. Maybe we talk?" The flamingo paused, its head tilted. Elliot slowly pulled a trail mix packet from his tunic. "Sun-dried berries. No preservatives. You look like a seed lover. He tossed it gently. The flamingo caught it midair and began chewing contemplatively. A long silence followed. Trial complete, Barry said, almost impressed. You have tamed the beast through trail diplomacy. I'm going to put that on my resume, Elliot said. Right under accidental therapist to a Venusian squid. The arena dissolved. He was back in the floating throne chamber. Elira stood beside the royal advisors, watching him with a look somewhere between amusement and awe. You passed, she said. I emotionally bonded with jellyfish, bribed a bird, and chose a door by accident. So naturally, yes. You've done better than most trained candidates. They were trained? The advisors muttered amongst themselves. The oldest, with a long data robe, approached Elliot and bowed stiffly. We still don't understand your value, and he said, but we now admit you are difficult to categorize. This intrigues us and frightens us slightly. I frighten most tax accountants too, Elliot said. Illyra stepped forward. He is unlike anything in our lineage. That is why he matters. Elliot looked up at her. South what now? Now, she said, offering him a small, sharp smile. We plan the coronation of the consort. He blinked. Does it involve dancing? Several. And possibly talking animals. Only the arrogant ones. I'll need new shoes. And armor, she added. For dancing? Just in case. He sighed, straightened his tunic, and tried to look regal. How hard can it be? The furniture snickered. The Royal Hall of Consolidated Ceremonies had been specially reconfigured for the upcoming coronation. Columns sang in soft tones of anticipatory praise, and gravity had been fine-tuned to make everyone's posture slightly more majestic. In the center, a circular platform hovered just above the floor, awaiting the arrival of Queen Elira and her newly certified consort. Protocol dictated that this part of the ritual be solemn, dignified, and full of strategically timed pauses. Elliot sneezed loudly into the ceremonial sash. Was that pollen-based or existential? Barry asked, floating beside him and adjusting the angle of his crown. It had already rotated twice on its own, seeking a more flattering light. I think I'm allergic to pageantry, Elliot muttered. Also possibly gold. It's not gold. It's Stella fiber alloy interlaced with humility particles. Well, I'm clearly reacting to the humility. Elira entered the chamber in silence, flanked by two guards and a creature that appeared to be a walking pile of robes, but was, according to the program, a high priest of symbolism. The creature emitted reverent burbling sounds that translated loosely to, let the binding of souls and titles commence, please and thank you. The audience stood, a sea of dignitaries, planetary delegates, and confused alien philosophers who came only for the snacks. Some wore traditional Varelian dress, others hovered or blinked with approval. A few were trying to discreetly live-stream the event through their ocular implants, only to be repeatedly photobombed by an overly enthusiastic ceremonial orb. Elliot stepped up to the platform. The sash slipped off one shoulder, revealing the emergency snack pocket Elira had insisted he include. The high priest burbled louder. You are now to accept the title of Consort Designate of the Crown Galactic, it intoned. Do you agree to bond your fate with hers? Your path with hers? Your Wi-Fi credentials with hers? Elliot said. Is there a family plan? The crowd murmured. A small sentient fern giggled. Elira gave him a look that translated across all species. Behave. You're still wearing the crown sideways. He cleared his throat. Yes, I agree. Full bonding. Full Wi-Fi access. Let's do this. The priest lifted a small artifact from within its robes, a ring of condensed memory, forged from a dying star's last emotion. It pulsed with soft light. Elliot held out his hand. The ring hovered, examined him, and buzzed once, as if registering mild confusion, before sliding onto his finger. The room did not explode in applause. Instead, it shifted. A low hum passed through the court as protocols updated. Advisors shared side glances. The AI chandeliers twinkled in Morse-like disapproval, but no one interrupted. Well, Elliot said, looking down at the ring, I guess I'm official. Do I get a badge? You get a seat at the Galactic negotiation table, Elira replied. Can I trade it for a hover bike? Only if the hoverbike can pass legislation. The ceremony concluded with the unfurling of a star-mapped tapestry depicting their union as a new political alignment. The tapestry immediately began arguing with the ceiling about symbolic placement. Nobody intervened. Later, in the post-coronation reception, held in a gravity-variable lounge with edible walls, Elliot found himself holding a drink that refused to stay in its cup unless spoken to gently. He was cornered by a cluster of Varelian nobles, each wearing decorative breathing apparatuses that doubled as conversation enhancers. "You've never governed a planet?" one asked. "No," Elliot said, "but I did run a greenhouse with 7 interns and an aggressive raccoon bot." "Do you understand the dynamics of interstellar trade law?" "Loosely. I once tried to mail myself a cantaloupe across dimensions. It didn't go well." "Are you aware that your public designation has already increased in search volume by 12,000%? Does that come with a voucher?" The nobles eventually drifted off in a cloud of concern and antique cologne. Barry floated over, glowing faintly with amusement. "You're winning hearts." "I'm breaking them gently. Illyra is receiving pressure from the council. They wish to see further proof of your diplomatic potential." "I already gave a speech." "You tripped over your speech and then used it to swat a rogue drink globule. It was sentient." "That's not confirmed." Illyra approached, her expression neutral, which Elliot had learned meant either everything is fine or a planetary uprising is brewing. "The council wants you to attend tomorrow's Unity Summit," she said, "as my voice. Your voice has a PhD in galactic history. Mine thinks tacos are a personality trait. They need to see who you are," she said, "not who they expect. And what if I start an interstellar incident? Then at least it'll be a memorable one." The Unity Summit was held in the Sphere of Accordance, a transparent dome orbiting a gas giant. Delegates floated in seats programmed to react with soothing pressure depending on mood. Elliot's chair immediately began pulsing in alarm as he entered. "Please remain calm," it said in 6 languages. "I am calm. You are vibrating at 7% panic." "That's just how I walk." The summit began with a keynote from the ambassador of Silox 4, who delivered a stirring monologue about mutual respect, while his torso transformed into a scale model of the Treaty of Entropic Alliance. Elliot clapped politely, though his hands stuck together due to a drink spill. Then it was his turn. He approached the central podium. It unfolded like origami, sniffed him once, and settled into a standing desk. The room quieted. 12 species and one extremely sentient spreadsheet focused on him. Elliot cleared his throat. "Hello, I'm Elliot Trent. I'm, human," which probably explains a lot. Silence. He continued. "I know I'm not a traditional consort. I haven't fought wars. I don't come from royal blood. I once got stuck in an elevator with a hostile alien ambassador and resolved it by teaching him how to play Uno." A pause, then a ripple of interest. "I don't know all your customs. I don't speak in perfect algorithms. But I do know what it's like to care about something enough to look ridiculous in public. That's why I'm here. That's why she chose me. Because I don't know how to be anything but myself, and somehow that's enough for her." Silence held, then a chuckle, then a cheer, then a standing ovation, led by the spreadsheet. When Elliot returned to his seat, it gave him a comforting squeeze. "You did well," Illyra whispered later, as they watched the stars turn outside the sphere. "I said Uno diplomacy in front of a galactic tribunal. You said it sincerely." Elliot leaned back, ring glowing gently. "This might work," he said. "It already is." Elliot was halfway through ironing a diplomatic robe, one that changed colors based on the wearer's self-esteem, when it turned neon orange and screamed. He sighed. "Barry," he called, "the robe is doing it again." "It's responding to your inner doubt," Barry replied from the ceiling, where he was installing a sarcasm suppressor. "I'm ironing. Of course I have doubt." The robe muttered something in Varelian that translated to "wrinkle criminal," then slithered back into the closet in protest. Elliot rubbed his eyes. The past few weeks had been a blur of briefings, state visits, and negotiations that included 5-hour staring contests, with a race that communicated solely through pupil dilation. Somehow he was still standing. Mostly. With caffeine and Illyra. She entered the room carrying a datapad that shimmered with anxious urgency. The Council is calling an emergency summit. They say the Unity Accord is fracturing. The Psylocke delegation walked out after someone referred to them as shrimp adjacent. That was me, Elliot admitted. I meant it as a compliment. Shrimp are adaptable. They took it as culinary foreshadowing. We're going to need a new fish metaphor. They're not fish. Then I'm out of metaphors. The emergency summit took place in the Nexus Chamber, a rotating spindle of glass and gravity designed to encourage compromise and mild nausea. Delegates floated, postured, blinked, and emitted pheromones of varying subtlety. Elira stood at the center, poised. Elliot stood beside her, marginally less poised, holding a folder labeled "How Not to Trigger a Galactic Recession." The Council's head delegate, a being composed entirely of algorithmic sand, projected a flickering diagram showing alliance instability. "This is the cost of unpredictability," the delegate said, particles rearranging with every syllable. "The Queen's selection has destabilized centuries of tradition. He's untrained, illogical, emotionally reactive." "I am standing right here," Elliot said, raising a hand. "Also emotionally resilient, mostly. You undermine protocol. I update it. You confuse our systems. Confusion is the gateway to progress. Your species once voted to name a research satellite Bodie McBoatface. I never said we were perfect." The chamber fell silent. Elira stepped forward. "He is not what you expected. That is the point. Our alliances, our laws, they've calcified. When we forget how to adapt, we decay." Elliot reminds us that laughter, chaos, and compassion are not weaknesses. "You crown disorder." "No," she said. "I crown choice." A soft chime sounded. The room pulsed. The spreadsheet ambassador slowly raised a document. "Motion to codify adaptive consort selection. Seconded by the Laughter Coalition of Sector 12. "Carried," said the sand being, crumbling slightly at the edges. Elliot blinked. "Wait, I didn't ruin anything?" Barry whispered in his ear. "Technically, no, though the diplomatic robe is requesting reassignment." Later that evening, on the edge of the Royal Observatory, Elliot stood alone under stars that hummed in unfamiliar constellations. He watched the lights of the capital ripple across the sky, ships gliding like thoughts too large for a single mind. Elira joined him, barefoot and quiet. "I thought I'd fail," he said. "Every second." "You did," she said. "At all the right things. I still feel like a misplaced gardening tool." She took his hand. "You're not a tool. You're a seed. You grew." He looked at her. "So, what now?" "We rule. Gently, irrationally, with snack breaks. And if the galaxy objects, we'll invite it to tea." He smiled. "Do we ever get to rest?" "No," she said, "but we get to dance." Behind them, the court played music for the first time in years. Not programmed, not calculated, but clumsy and joyful and full of wrong notes that made it perfect. Delegates danced, robes tangled, ambassadors stumbled over their appendages. And for once, no one documented the errors. They lived them. Elliot pulled Elira into a half-spin that nearly ended in a royal collision. "You're terrible at this," she said. "I'm improving," he said. "Which is terrifying." The stars pulsed. The robe sang. Barry sighed with robotic pride. And far above, in the quiet of orbit, a small satellite with outdated sensors and no formal clearance transmitted a single, simple message across the stars. The Queen chose chaos, and it worked.